Today we are going to make turbo dogs, the in-universe version of a hot dog in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now in my last video I did talk about scaz steaks, and I joked how a Jotaz would make a better cut of meat. I didn't realize how accurate I was about the tastiness of a Jotaz. Now at some point when you are gallivanting through Undercity meats, you do come across a crate of turbo dogs, and you get this brief description. It says something to the effect that turbo dogs are a local food, and that there was an expose trying to shed light on the source of the meat, but they were unsuccessful in reducing the appeal. There is an encounter with a legendary beast that does not come with the usual rumor. In fact, it's something you just have to remember early on in the game, of a little locked door that you need your electro dart to unlock. Now, you don't get the electro dart until very late into the game, but when you access what is behind that door, the implications on the source of the meat of the turbo dogs is stunning. Now, once you get past those doors, you run into a Jotaz. Now, this particular Jotaz is purple with yellow stripes, and it somehow managed to escape its enclosure. Now, turbo dogs are mentioned sparingly in the game, but it's one of the first pieces of dialogue that you can overhear while sneaking around Coruscant. And you come across this dialogue with some stormtroopers.
You want to get a bite after a shift? Sure, I could go for a turbo dog. I heard they make those out of strides. That's just a rumor. Fine. What about that noodle shop? Auger Alley's closed for business. Senator's got something in the works, huh? He always does. So long as I get my credits, it's none of my concern.
However, rather than the rumor being that the meat comes from scrats, which are just Star Wars rats in-game, the game seems to suggest that the mystery meat is indeed the deliciously marbled Jotaz. So I wanted to recreate the turbo dog to imagine what it would be like. And I use the legendary beast of the rabbit Jotaz as the inspiration for my turbo dog recipe that I'm making today. And you know what goes great with a turbo dog? A nice piping hot cup of calf. In fact, my calf of choice is Pyloon Saloon's House Blend. I was able to secure a shipment of just 15 bags of this stuff. So if you want to try Pyloon Saloon House Blend, follow the link down in the description to secure your bag now. So this is the recipe for the turbo dog. I did a lot of brainstorming, and at first, like most of my ideas, it was pretty ambitious. Initially, I wanted to dye the hot dog purple. I was going to spiral the hot dog and then use a pickled daikon that's also spiraled to weave it in between. It was getting out of hand. But I settled on this tasty version of my idea as my interpretation of a turbo dog. To start, wrap a standard earth hot dog with some bacon. I was inspired by the big belly of the Jotaz and imagined that their gut would produce some awesome Jotaz pork belly, basically, and bacon. In other words, some Jotaz bacon. No, I'm just making 4 of them. And actually for this, you can make it a night ahead if you're planning to make it later on. It's pretty easy to prep ahead of time. Then you're going to want to skewer them. I wanted to kind of roast them. If you have a convection oven, it'll do this really well because, it'll circulate the hot air around them. If you lay them down inside of a pan, you're going to get one side that has all the heat, and the rest of it will cook, but it's just one side's going to be more cooked than the other. You can also do this in an air fryer. Just careful, it's going to make a huge mess if you do it in there. So maybe cover it, some foil, a good idea. Again, all this I actually made a day ahead, so the slaw is another part of the recipe you can make ahead of time, and it's really easy. This is going to be the represent the purple hide of the rabid Jotaz. And so you're just going to want to slice some of your purple cabbage in thin little strips. I realized that my Big Bertha knife was a little bit dull, so I switched over to a chef knife. Like I mentioned, I was initially thinking, how can I dye the hot dog purple, but then realized the general color of meat is the same. And also, if you play the game and you cut stuff in half, it's always like regular meat color on the inside. Then you're gonna want to get your cilantro. You can grab the base of it, twist where the ribbon is, and just take out the stems. They're not bad. They're just, you know, texture-wise, sometimes they can be bitter, but they don't bother me. Then you're gonna want to chop up your cilantro really fine. Next, you're gonna want to get about 2 limes. Find some nice juicy ones, and you can two good limes should do it. And this is about 2 cups of cabbage, like a wad of cilantro. These aren't precise measurements. I'll put more distinct measurements in the description below. All right, then I clean up my station again, and we're gonna make some of that blue bantha milk. The way I did the bantha milk was going to be boiling some like bluish stuff, but then I couldn't find blue stuff, and I found this really cute little Crayola food coloring, and that's what I used. Just be careful with this food dye because it gets everywhere and it stains, and it's really hard to get out. That's what my little screams were each time. Just find your nearest bantha and milk it for some blue milk, or if not, just dye the regular stuff. My beautiful wife was nice enough to make me some hot dog buns, and they tasted great. They were really good. Milk bread is just a very versatile, easy to make bread. Like things that are usually white in our universe, the Star Wars universe arbitrarily makes things blue. And it's technically not arbitrary because the milk that comes from a bantha is blue, and obviously that would color your bread blue. So if you're not able to get a hold of some bantha milk, you can always just dye your milk blue with some regular food dye. All right, so for the hot dogs, you're going to want to skewer them. If you have a convection oven, it'll cook them really well. If you have a regular old oven, just flip them halfway through cooking. I cooked it about 325, 350 for about an hour. To represent the stripes, the yellow stripes on that rabbit Jotaz, we're going to have some yellow tomatoes, which was hard to track down, but I did eventually find one.
This is a $2 tomato.
Then we're just using some little peppers. These aren't spicy at all. They taste exactly like a bell pepper. I can't remember what they're called. Again, but the recipe will be down below in the description. And again, turbo equals spicy, so I also included some chili piquin. They're super tasty, and they kind of look like photon torpedoes in my mind. So torpedo, turbo, I don't know. And really, we're just trying to include as much color in it as possible because in my mind, Star Wars food is funky colors. The toppings is where we get a little bit more of that funky Star Wars colors in the recipe. Now you want to throw this in the oven. It cooked for about an hour. Maybe I could have cranked up the heat. This was about halfway through. Then I cooked them some more until they were nice and dark and sizzly. It's perfect. Again, if you want, you can flip it halfway through to make sure it's cooked evenly. I had that little middle right hot dog come out a little light. To assemble your hot dog, you're going to want to cut your milk bread down the middle. You can find any milk bread recipe, just drop a few dyes inside of the milk. And then you're going to want to put the hot dog right in the middle, just like so.
The hot dogs are good here. They put them right in the middle of the bun.
Get your slaw, a generous portion, and just fork it onto the dog and spread it around. On one side, have the tomato kind of nestled in the corner. And then you're going to drop in some of those really mild, only for flavor, peppers. And that is your turbo dog. My inspiration for the turbo dog was thinking of Coruscant as kind of like a big city that has a lot of influence from different planets. Use a little bit of the Chicago style hot dog as my base, and then just incorporated funky elements from a different food. So made the bread blue, made it milk bread, nice and soft. It was really good. So I planned out this entire meal, and it wasn't until I sat down and took a bite that realized it was so good. Like, this is an elevated turbo dog. This isn't your common street turbo dog. You're not going to find this at any old stand on the lower levels of Coruscant. you're going to have to make a reservation to eat this dog. That is a good turbo dog. You're going to have to do a favor for a hut to get this reservation. That was my interpretation of a turbo dog. If you would like to make it, the recipe is down below in the description. If you would like to support my show, consider checking out the merch that is also linked down below. You can also like and subscribe if you care to do so. I know Allie, the algorithm, really likes it when you do it, and so do I.
Ah, that's the spirit. Oh, that's great. Come on, I'll bet you're hungry. I'll make you something to eat. Did you ever have a scare stick?